行动亚洲是一个具有远见的公益组织，我们相信，要解决动物虐待、人类苦难和大规模的环境破坏，不能以头痛医头、脚痛医脚的方式解决单一问题，而应该透过教育改变人们的观念。我们将工作重心集中在3个方向：校园教育、消费者教育和专业教育。在中国学校里，我们的生命关怀教育项目已经覆盖了36000多名学生和800多位老师。行动亚洲向他们介绍人类对动物和地球造成的影响，并且带入同理心和生命关怀的相关知识。在消费者教育上，我们积极推动生命关怀的生活方式，透过举办零皮草时尚盛典，影响全世界数以万计的时装消费者。而每一年不断成长的时尚盛典，让人们对零皮草时尚的认可也逐年增加。对于不同领域中具有影响力的专家，我们提供专业训练，借由他们来影响公众。我们也对兽医师进行培训，来提升动物福利标准。目前在中国已经培训了约800位兽医师，培训种子训练师更是本项目的主要特色。然而我们还有很多的工作要做，许多儿童期盼接受教育，很多兽医师需要专业培训，施加在动物、人及环境的苦难和折磨应被终止。因此我们非常需要您的支持。欢迎访问行动亚洲的网站 actasia.org， 你也可以透过捐款支持我们的项目。同在一起，我们可以让未来变得更美好。
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first ever Plant Forward, organized by ACT Asia's Compassionate Choices Network. The Compassionate Choices Network is a community of nonprofit organizations and social enterprises in Asia who collaborate on social change related to impact on animals, people, and the environment. The network aims to reduce consumer demand for products and services that cause harm and destruction to our planet. We provide education to help people make compassionate choices by increasing understanding of practices and production methods and the impact they have on all who share our planet. We are promoting solutions in Asia for Asia by building a movement of compassionate consumers in the region. So we're really glad to see you here today. We have a total of 6 sessions in this year's Plant Forward, ranging from authentic Asian plant-based cooking demos to live Q&A sessions with Asian doctors on how a plant-based diet is beneficial to your physical and mental health. Please visit our website at actasia.org/plant-forward for more information. And we look forward to seeing you at the other sessions. And now let's get started, and we hope you will enjoy today's event. Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Xu. Hello, everyone. I am Pei Fin. I am from the manager for the foundation for Green Development Foundation, also the founder and CEO of ACT Asia. And welcome to the first Compassionate Choice Network Planned Forward public sessions. ACT Asia in China and in Asia, we have been dedicated to promote a harmonious society based upon compassionate choices and the life care education. And now, today, with the collaboration with CCN, we are working together with the Good Food Farm, Good Food Foundation, GFF, and as well as many other Asian organizations to focus on the SDG week following September the 17th by the UN. And today it's the fifth session within the series. And I'm really excited to have invited the Dr. Xu Jia to be here to talk about the relationship between plant-based diet and its relationship with mental health. Dr. Xu Jia graduated from Peking University, and he holds a PhD degree in physiology from the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. He is the author of the critically acclaimed Not Medicine But a Cure book, which highlights the benefits of a healthy vegetarian diet to awaken our body's innate ability to self-heal. And during his lecture tour between 2014 to 2021, Dr. Xu visited many cities, over 200 in China, and have given his lecture to more than 180,000 people about the healing power of plant-based diet, from thyroid diseases to Parkinson's syndrome, from women's health to students' health. Dr. Xu showed everybody the non-medical cure is easily available from our dining table. All right, so today we hope this session is not only going to benefit the people in China, but also to bring those best practices to the rest of the world in Asia and other parts of the world. So now, Dr. Xu, could you briefly introduce to us about yourself, your own background and experiences? Well, thank you very much, Ms. Su Peifen, for inviting me. Thank you, ACT Asia. It's my great pleasure to be here today. And as Ms. Su have already introduced me a little bit, I studied and grew up in China. And then when I was pursuing my postgraduate degree, I was in the United States, and I spent more than 20 years there to study the modern physiology and the medicine related knowledge. And then in the recent 10 years, I had been paying more attention and more focused on nutrition, and also participated in a nutriology association in the United States, which is also another nonprofit organization who's been promoting the plant-based diet and promoting people's awareness to understand the benefits it could have for people's mental health. And then in 2011 or 2012, I started to promote a healthier diet in the greater China region. And I started doing the lecturing tour since 2014. I published my book, Not Medicine But a Cure, in 2018. And then together with many volunteers, we've been pushing further to let more people understand about it. And so we established the same non-profitable platform, Not a Medicine But a Cure. Now we have hundreds of volunteers promoting this, so benefiting many people. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Xu. Not a medicine, but a cure sounds very attractive, hoping that you should have not only hundreds of volunteers. I'd like to see more than 1,000 or even thousands of volunteers joining you. Well, the reason I get to know you because internationally, there's a responsible medicine as a very heated topic, also a very advanced organization. Not only talk about the diseases from the perspective of the medicines, but also out of responsibility. And responsible medicine is also something similar to our education of our compassionate education, the relationship between compassion and responsibility, what responsibility we all hold for ourselves, our family, our society, and the nation, etc. So there are quite a lot of similarities between these seemingly different topics. I am extremely excited today, Dr. Xu in China. You are a male who studied nature science and holds a PhD in degree in physiology. So when did you start to have plant-based diet, and what made you make that decision? And what's your most significant personal experience for making such decisions? And after so many years of taking plant-based diet, what's your own experience? Can you share it with all of our participants and live stream watchers today online? All right. I started taking plant-based diet since 1993 without meat or without eggs, and around 10 years ago, after 2000, which year I already forgot. I haven't made that decision officially, but I started to take no dairy products. But I personally didn't like dairy products very much even before that. So I basically was like almost a pure vegan even before I gave up dairy products. Well, the reason I made such changes is because after I studied in the university, well, at the very beginning, it's also something related to a healthy issue, because at that time I had hemorrhoids, and sometimes I have quite a lot of bleeding, and I stopped eating meat, egg, and the dairy products for a week because I was so weak, and eventually I got much better. And then at that time, in the 1990s, I was worried maybe I'm going to be lack of nutrition. So I really lack of knowledge. We don't had internet at that time. So I started to come back to eat meat and egg and dairy products again. And then my bleeding started again due to the hemorrhoids. So it's been several years, all the way till 1993. I gradually discovered the relationship between the bleeding and my own body's reaction. So I decided to go almost pure vegan. So it was a pretty natural thing for me to do after so many years. And now I don't feel any lack of nutrition. And I don't feel there's much difference, to be honest. Well, the biggest difference is that I don't bleed anymore. I don't feel that discomfortability anymore. And then internet came into our lives, and I studied quite a lot from internet, not only from uh, I studied a lot about plant-based diet. We know that it's not only beneficial for our own human body, but also for mental health, for animals, and for the environment. And I got to know about the big trends. And then after 2000, I didn't like dairy products very much. I still would eat ice cream at that time, but then I just decided not to take it anymore, and all the way till now. I think choosing to go vegan, the best benefit to me is that now I get to do what I'm doing right now. I feel really honored because promoting a plant-based diet to more people is now one of the greatest choice in my whole life. If I hadn't started to do it in the very first place, I wouldn't be here. What benefited me the most is exactly that it had made my new career afterwards. Yes, indeed. So after taking a plant-based diet, so just now you said it stopped the bleeding from your hemorrhoids. But as we have a topic today, more about mental health. So in terms of mental health, are there any changes? Well, I started taking that plant-based diet like 30 years ago. It was a long time ago. I couldn't remember very clearly. But at that time, I was previously I was pretty stubborn, but after taking plant-based diet, I am more open-minded and I often think out of the box. Yeah, I wouldn't be too stubborn at things anymore. I think that's what me feel more relaxed. Well, yes, indeed. I also agree with you on that point very much. For many years, well, later we can talk about dairy products and eggs a little bit more. I am allergic to dairy products myself. Well, my personal feeling is that after taking plant-based diet, I think my body is quite sensitive. I can get to listen to the dialogue between me and my body. Some people, they are not that sensitive. I was hiking, I had a friend who's already so cold, already had the symptom of that mountain sickness or AMS, but yet they don't know about it. They are not that sensitive to hearing their own body's language, but I get to know that. I can feel it very differently when I take plant-based diet. So I would have to ask a follow-up question. As we said, you're a male. Many people around me, especially those male friends of mine, they have some concerns over pure plant-based diet or some misconceptions, especially when it comes to parents fostering their children. I was speaking to another Chinese medicine physician a few days ago. Many parents would worry about the lack of nutrients of their children quite a lot, yet still also some athletes or elderly people, they would also be concerned whether plant-based diet can give them enough nutrition or enough energy or help them concentrate when they needed that. So could you help us to clarify on that point a little bit? Well, I think lies in your question. The first point is whether plant-based diet can meet people's nutrient requirements. And I believe this is the absolute number one barrier stopping people from going towards a plant-based diet in the whole society. Because traditionally people thought plant-based diet is not enough. Meat is necessary. That's what people hold in their opinion. So rooted there. If you don't have meat, you're going to have serious healthy issues. And for me, myself, of course, you can tell it's definitely not problematic. And there are different ways to analyze this. After I started to study nutriology, you would know that human bodies actually require very little things. Some people can live without even eating. But just take a look at our similar other species, those monkeys and chimpanzees, those higher primates, they eat basically fruits and seeds. And of course, we human beings are different from those pure plant-based herbivore animals, but yet still we can see that they are quite similar to us in terms of physiology. So definitely it fit our lifestyle and it fits into our needs. But scientifically, there's already many professional arguments from those authoritative associations telling us that plant-based diets are definitely enough for human beings. Like in 2019, there's a file from the American Association of Nutriology for people of any age groups, for any people, including pregnant women, younger people, athletes, elderly, anyone, vegan or vegetarian or plant-based diet would be definitely enough. That was as early as in 2009. And then in 2016, there was an updated version. And because of that, many other professional associations had follow up, not only from the United States, but also in Japan, in Europe, Canada. Many associations held the same opinion. And recently, like in 2022, this exact year, the latest diabetes treating guideline, or in 2 years ago, the WHO affiliated World Cancer Studying Foundation also had launched a lifestyle guideline for cancer prevention. Cancer prevention, that basically is for everyone. It also suggests us to avoid eating meat, processed meat, red meat, but should be focused more on coarse grain foods and vegetables and a plant-based diet. It doesn't mention anything related to meat. And the other professional associations, Rheumatology, Cardiovascular Association in the United States, their recommendations are astonishingly similar. Plant-based diet, plant forward. Yeah, this is exactly the same spirit as they are all recommending. This is scientifically proven by many, many professional associations. It's to believed to be a correct direction. So in terms of nutriology perspective, it's definitely not problematic. It's okay to eat plant-based diet. Yeah, that was trying to answer your second question about whether plant-based diet would affect people's degree of concentration. Many people had that concern. Well, the fact is, on the contrary, having meat in your diet, it would cause people to find it more difficult to concentrate because meat, egg, and dairy products with oil, they are pro-inflammatory, and pro-inflammatory food could cause the inflammation in vessels, causing your brain to have a lack of oxygen. I'll give you one example. For example, if you have a very oily meal, KFC or a McDonald's, some French fries, or even the Chinese cuisines like the pork dishes, after you have it, you would feel really sleepy. Why is that? Because your brain was in a lack of oxygen. Your vessel was in, blood vessels are in a short temporary phase of oxidation and inflammation. That's why many Chinese people would take a nap after lunch. After the nap, you feel that you're no longer sleepy. However, the inflammation are still there in your blood vessel. It takes 4 hours for that inflammation to reach its peak. And during that 4 hours, you're not sleepy because the lack of oxygen situation of your brain would give an order to your heart so that it increases your heart pulse to increase your blood pressure. And eventually, even though the blood vessel isn't as smooth as before, yet with higher pressure, your blood would be surged into your brain and gives you better oxygen to your brain. And that's also something related to high blood pressure as well. Yes, really well said. Yet there are quite a lot of misconceptions or cultural intermittencies that people are worried that eating plant-based diet would cause negative effect to people's health. And in the Western world, there's a journal, China's Study. This is very famous and probably one of the most complete study over Chinese cuisines. Many traditional Chinese cuisines actually doesn't have any egg or milk and etc. And that journal also had very deep scientific interpretations for modern way of doing plant-based diet, and there are quite a lot to discuss about. So just now, what you have mentioned, in your experience, especially considering you said meat, even eggs and the dairy products or milk, people still think that they are necessary, or if many females would worry about the lack of calcium after entering middle age, or they're worried about a lack of protein because if they don't eat eggs anymore. So could plant-based diet really replace all the nutrition we need from the traditional diet that people are accustomed to? For example, me myself, I am allergic to milk, and the school and the parents always say milk is really good. It provides calcium to you, even if you would have a diarrhea afterwards. So could you tell us about the eggs and the milk anymore? Well, first the point I want to make a clarification here. It's not a replacement. Well, it's not a replacement we're making. It's to remove the toxic food from our traditional diet. And why we say milk and eggs are also toxic, or not if not toxic, why are they, we say they are harmful? Well, because those high fat food, milk and eggs, they would cause effect on our flora, the non-probiotic germs or bacteria in our intestine. And then we would have a syndrome called the leaky gut. Leaky gut would cause your toxin gets into your blood and it causes all series of problems, including the allergy you have just talked about. Milk allergy is one of the most common thing happening to children, and there are quite a lot of other allergies. And eventually they all go through a broken down intestine barrier, making a lot of toxin that should not exist in blood vessels get into the blood vessel. And those are the things which causes those self-immuno diseases or allergies. So that's the most common reason or most important reason why we should stop eating dairy products and eggs. Let's stop harming our own body. Let's stop damaging our intestinal flora and avoid it from going into the wrong direction. I believe plant-based diet, it's not something could help to cure your body, because our body has very strong self-curing abilities. As long as you do not harm it, it can remain very healthy, safe, and keep a good mood. Nowadays, people have diseases all the time because they've been eating all that non healthy food, and they've been damaging their bodies all the time. Well, really to the point, you are much more advanced than I am. It's not a replacement thing. It's about saying no to the harmful foods, those detrimental foods. And for us, we actually, our human bodies is a very precise machine. It has that very strong ability of healing itself. And what we have been doing, eating the meat and eggs and the milk, are basically blocking it from curing itself, because given all those detrimental food and harmful food into it, then basically you are backpedaling. And I think this, to some extent, is really something that we have to make a change in terms of mindset, instead of thinking plant-based diet as a replacement. It's all about do not harm your body anymore and let it heal by itself. All right, I am now a fan of you, Dr. Xu. I've been recommending today's session with many friends. They say, well, I knew Dr. Xu in the first place. So you do have a very wide fan space. It's a very rare opportunity here today. I really do hope more our audience or live stream watchers, you can take these rare opportunities to ask your questions. You leave your comments and your question, be it on Baijia platform or Weibo or WeChat. We have staff collecting your comments and questions. So let's now take this opportunity to ask your question. Right before our national holidays, it's a chance for you to ask a question so that you wouldn't feel that confusion during the national holidays, and you get to protect your own bodies. And also, one more thing. We know that you are very experienced, and we do have very limited time, and we have 3 languages interpretation. So could you please slow down a little bit? Otherwise, our interpreters wouldn't be able to catch up. It's a bit more pressure on their shoulders if you speak too fast. So just a little reminder there. All right, just now you said not to replace, but to remove the harmful foods. Now, entering today's topic, uh, what type of positive effect it would have to take a plant-based diet? And now we know that positive energy or positive mental health is everybody's been talking about. So as when they talk about food, they would more think about their physical health. So what's the relationship between plant-based diet and mental health? Is it possible to eat plant-based diet to prevent or even cure mental illness? Or how to prevent mental issues? Well, in fact, the relationship between plant-based diet and the mental health, there are quite a lot of links in between. Just following the previous topic, the inflammation thing, the pro-inflammatory foods would causes inflammation within your body, also to your brain, and causes depression or anxiety. And such a type of pro-inflammatory foods has its very natural link with depression and anxiety. Animal-based diet would cause your the body to generate cortical hormones, which affects people's mood and causes people to be more addictive. Some people eat meat. It's basically like an addiction. Behind this addiction, it's because of the cortical hormones or some other hormones making a max. And just now I mentioned about the intestinal flora. Some people think if you ask me to eat plant-based diet, you just kill me. I'd rather be killed than to give up eating meat. Why is that? That's because the intestinal flora has been making a call there. There's always two types of bacteria in your intestines making a balance, the probiotics and the non probiotics. The probiotics really like fat and meat. So in that case, if you are a person accustomed to eat quite a lot of meat all the time, high oil, high fat, and high meats, which causes your intestine to be full of that non-probiotic bacteria. And suddenly one day you switch to plant-based diet, you would feel already full afterwards, yet the intestinal flora are still very hungry. They would still be craving for meat. They would tell your brain to make you feel that, well, it seems I ate so many vegetables, yet still I'm not feeling well. I still feel hungry. This is very common for many people to suddenly switch to plant-based diet because the intestinal flora had been making that call. That's why I say our diet would affect the intestinal flora, and the intestinal flora would affect the people's cravings. So give it 2 weeks, let the flora change, and then your mindset would change quite a lot. Yeah, vegetables and fruits are so delicious. Many people would have that issue because the intestinal flora had been manipulating people's brain and the thoughts. So that was the points that were the points I wanted to make, but there are still more coming up. Recently, there have been studies coming up that in meat, there's quite a lot of types of toxoplasma gondii or tox. Those tox, after you eat it, they would get into your nervous system and it causes different negative effects. And recent studies are telling us such tox infection are related directly to the mental illness, such as bipolar or the schizophrenia. And there are quite a lot of such talks from the meat. And this is basically recently found a physical form of foundation for many mental illnesses. And there are some other environmental pollutants, especially mercury in fish. Mercury would be enriched in fish bodies or other substances. And people have found that they are quite much related to autism. Autism, we also believe it to be a mental illness. However, to some extent or one perspective, at least it's related to the pollutants such as mercury. So from our perspective, with our brain, mindsets, even many mental perceptions or feelings that we have, many negative moods are all related. Wow, thank you so much. Very scientific what you have talked about. And this is some pure new things for me to hear about, even if I haven't been taking meat for a long time in myself. Well, the reason I'm saying so is because in 1988, it was the first time I started to have a try of a plant-based diet. One of my friend, one of my best of friends suddenly became blind, couldn't see anything. So I was really worried. I wanted to make a wish for her. Maybe that would help her to get to see sight again. I had 2 weeks. Yes, indeed. I've been telling everyone in the first 2 days, I've been taking so many fruits and vegetables, yet I still feel starving all the time. This is indeed exactly what you have talked about. The intestinal flora had been making the decisions and manipulating my brain. So I was telling people that maybe meats are better, my understanding, or maybe the meat, animal-based diets, or maybe they take different times and contents to be absorbed and cause my bodies to require different contents from them. But what you have talked about is really the key thing here. If you have just been making that switch from animal-based diet to plant-based diet, and you feel that kind of starving, do not panic. This is just a transitional period, and it's a very important signal because I have been there. I had some panicking at that time. It seems like I can never stuff myself. I'm always starving and hungry. Okay, so another question for Dr. Xu. When we speak about mental health, yes, indeed, um, this is a big challenge because people are now having so fast rhythms in life, always quite a lot of pressure in studying and working. Exactly what I've been doing right now, joining all these online webinars and the meetings, and often feel the pressure so much and causing my mental health to almost having a breakdown. And also it reflects on your body as well. Like many people would have such issues, for example, intestinal disease, inability to eat, hard to digest, or sleep deprivation. So do you think in these issues in our real lives, are there any possible are there possibilities to use plant-based diet to solve these issues, to take what kind of food to solve these problems? For example, you have already mentioned a little bit to avoid eat fat meats and KFC and McDonald's, deep fried foods. So what are the good foods that we should take? Maybe you could give us some suggestion there. Just like you said, pressure, food to people's pressure, it could help to adjust a little bit, but pressure, it's a mental perspective thing. It's on a mental level, so it's still going to be there. But with different diets, different foods, it could help you to change people's ability or attitude towards our different pressure, so that even with the same pressure, you would feel different. So from that perspective, you know that with pressure, it's also related to inflammation. If we use pro-inflammatory diet, meat, egg, and milk, and fried. It causes your pro-inflammatory level to be high in your body, and then causes your people's perception for pressure would be stronger. On the contrary, if you eat more vegetables and fruits, the pressures are still there, but with less cortical hormones in your bodies, it would causes your inflammatory to be lower on a level. For example, you use those anti-inflammatory food, healthy, organic food. It has quite a lot of natural antioxidants and would helps you to go against the oxidization, and that helps you to improve your mood naturally. And apart from that, I want one more thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, you first. So just now you also mentioned about autism. Well, in China now there are quite some awareness growing over this kind of a disease, autism. So related to that, could you tell us more about it? Well, I suddenly I thought about what I wanted to talk about, and then I'm going to come back to autism. Well, pressure is a mental thing. It's about people's response to uncertainties. It's a very natural. That means your life, there are uncertain possibilities, and you have an anticipation for that. You don't know about the future, which is perfectly natural. So I do have a formula. Pressure equals to uncertainty multiplies its importance. For example, something is more uncertain and it's more important, your pressure would be bigger and bigger. So basically, you could adjust the both ends of this formula. Let me give you one example. When you are investing in the stock market, you have 100 yuan, you place all that 100 yuan into your stock market, and that's everything. Wow, stock market is very volatile, and you would have a huge pressure because it's possible that you lose the whole of that 100 yuan. And there are two ways to relieve your pressure. One is to not put that 100 yuan into stock market. You can put all that into a bank savings account. So you don't have any uncertainty about it. So you wouldn't have any pressure anymore. On the other end, you could still invest in the stock market, but do not do it 100%. For example, just 1% of your wealth into your stock market, that importance got lowered in the formula, which means even the stock market goes up or goes down quite a lot, it just matters to your 1% of your health. So basically, food and diet is only a part of managing pressure, but behavioral changes are quite important as well. Well, could you tell us about that formula again? This is so critical. Pressure equals to uncertainty multiplies importance. Indeed. Okay, so I really do think that Miss Dr. Xu, you have been telling us from a natural science perspective, very distinctive understanding. My own kid is right now in her adolescent period, and they have quite a lot of pressure in their studies and examinations, and such anxieties and panics caused by that pressure, as well as the illness. Some kid would hurt themselves, or some kid would feel they're unable to eat. These are very critical consequences, and these adolescents, they feel many things that they cannot control. They don't have any control over themselves. However, the only thing that we get to control is their own diet. So they studied to control themselves better in terms of diet, at least. Well, just like you said, pressure equals to uncertainty multiplies importance. And that's something they could follow as well. So as you said, indeed, food and diet is only a part of it, but also behavioral change is quite important as well. Back to the previous question I asked about autism. Could you tell us more about your experiences in this regard? Well, autism, for the studies for autism, there had been quite a lot about it. When people found that there are direct links between autism and the intestinal flora, there's a term called the flora brain axis, which means whenever there are things happening in your intestines, your brain would be directly affected. For example, people would find that if the mother is using those antibiotics, etc., it would affect their offsprings. And we know that food could directly affect on our intestinal flora. And a plant-based diet would have the best preservation for your good bacteria and intestinal flora in your stomach to make that intestinal world a very harmonious one and cause you to be able to solve a lot of issues or at least have it relieved. One of my friends got a son who's got the autism, and he could only meet his own mother, and sometimes he has a bad temper. And then I recommended, well, they used to take plant-based diet, but not a very healthy type. They still use quite a lot of oil and processed vegetables and fruits. And then we suggest them to take a more healthy plant-based diet, low-fat, pure vegan, and reduce those fine processed food and take more organic foods. And after doing that, their son got much, much better. And I began to be able to meet him, a very bright kid, very intelligent, and got some artistic feelings as well. So from that example, we can also tell that healthy diet could really benefit autism patient as well. And there are data proven that as well. As I have talked about, there are quite a lot of pollutants such as mercury in water, in fish, that are directly linked to people's disease of autism. And folic acid or vitamin B12 or there are other things which are also related to autism, such as GSH. And folic acid is really easy to get as long as you use vegetable leaves. And vitamin B12 is something that many vegan would be lack of, would cause some mental and neural system issues. So we would really suggest you, if you are taking pure plant-based diet, do not forget to add some more extra B12, vitamin B12. Well, the reason we say that isn't because plant-based diet isn't perfect. It's because the way we plant the crops have some problems. Vitamin B12 comes from microbiotics and bacteria. The traditional way of planting crops uses those natural fertilizers, such as the feces of human and animals. And the microbiotics would generate vitamin B12 and it goes through circulations, gets into food, and people would take that. Now, people plant crops with chemical fertilizers. It doesn't have that vitamin B12 or microbiotics and it kills the bacteria in the land, in the soil, and causing people to be further lack of vitamin B12. And even if you turn on that tap water, they are disinfected by chlorinated. These are non-bacteria environment, but not like in traditional or ancient times. In ancient times, we drink water harvested from a well, a natural well, and there are bacteria as well as some bacteria products there. And the reason that they don't need extra vitamin B12 because it's added into the feed for animals. So whenever they are eating meat, they have that vitamin B12. And when we eat vegetables and fruits, it's more likely you have a lack of vitamin B12, but it's really nice to treat or help with autism. Well, one of my friends would ask now, well, your answer, why is there a lack of so what is the solution to the lack of vitamin B12? Well, use vitamin B12 supplements fermented with bacteria. It's not synthesized chemically because it's too complicated to be done so. Well, animal would also take that. That's why you have vitamin B12 in animal meat, because it's basically secondhand vitamin B12 you're taking if you're eating meat. So using the supplement would be more natural if you're eating plant-based diet. Okay, so what you have mentioned is already similar to the next question I would like to ask, especially against the backdrop of COVID, with all those lockdowns and the restrictions we have for traveling. So in regard to mental illness, apart from autism, how about bipolar or panics or depressions, or there are other sorts of issues? For example, some people would easily be agitated and start doing violent behaviors. They are mentally very vulnerable nowadays. So what suggestion do you have in that regard? Well, my first suggestion is to avoid animal-based diet, because that exactly is the mood for animal to feel when they are slaughtered. Hate and the panic and all the negative moods and emotions. When they are feeling that emotion, there are some substances, adrenaline hormones and cortical hormones would be generated suddenly in their blood and stored there in the meat. So when you are eating those are small molecule cholesterol. So even if you cook it, you will still take it in. It's not broken down due to cooking, and those hormones would be directly taken in. You basically, it's like you have eaten in those negative emotions. So that's what caused there. And people would feel easily agitated and often feel angry, etc. So if you want to feel more relaxed throughout the day, try to avoid meat. So thank you. And what you said, that the animals, while they are being slaughtered, their hormones, adrenalines would be generated. I heard about that before. So today, after hearing it from you, I think it got some more endorsement from a more scientific perspective. Like many people say, well, that's what you have been talking about. It's a Buddhism theory. You are eating the emotions. But as Dr. Xu puts it, it's exactly because of those hormones or substances that they generate when they are feeling that emotions. It cannot be broken down through cooking or slaughtering. And when you are eating the meat, you would naturally take it into your body as well. So this is what I wanted to remind everybody. This is a misconception that many people may have. Well, another question, as people now have very busy works, a lot of pressure, and people often take dinner very, very late, or even those they would go out to eat at the middle of the night. There are midnight snacks. There are the foreigners would think it's a very nice thing to see, only specific in Chinese or Asian regions. So when we are dining out of our own family, how to get healthier? Well, first of all, pressure is kind of emotion. It affects your diet from two extremes. I could tell you about it. One is that when you have too much pressure, you wouldn't feel like eating, or sometimes you would take quite a lot of garbage foods, high oil, high sugar, because it could temporarily mediate your pressure. That's why people would crave for sugar, especially under huge pressure. So when you are under pressure and you go out to eat, you should tell yourself even more to understand whether I really do need that kind of food, whether it's really beneficial to my physical body and the mental healthiness, and be aware of it and take those anti-inflammatory food instead of the pro-inflammatory food. As long as you can do that, your pressure would be automatically relieved to some extent, or at least not worsened. So my suggestion is to go with subduction. So it's not like take some good foods. That's not as important as removing the bad foods from your diet. So avoid those bad, harmful food is more important. However, it's difficult. To many people, they feel that the sugar, oil, and fat, it's very attractive. So how can we resist that? Should we always keep on reminding ourselves? Well, it's probably because you're already accustomed to this habit of diet. You haven't been doing a very healthy diet. Even if you're a very vegetarian, you're still taking milks and eggs, or even if you're eating only vegan, yet still they are fried. So what we suggested that the healthy diet is not only meat and egg and dairy are avoided, but also oil are avoided as well because it's pro-inflammatory as well. So our partners, we recommend everyone to do that, and our body would be really sensitive to that. And you would have acne whenever you start to go back to that bad diet again, and it affects your emotions and your moods as well. Sometimes your mood would be even more sensitive to the food. So it's all about getting the correct food. When at that time you have probiotics in your intestinal flora, you wouldn't have that much strong crave for oil and sugar anymore. Well, indeed, Dr. Xu, what you have said about is so important. Fundamental changes are critical. If fundamentally your habit of diet is a lot of oil, a lot of fat, a lot of meat, eggs, and the milk, in that case, it's already a very fundamental issue for you. So when you are dining outside at restaurants or during those midnight snacks, it's the intestinal floras that you have cultivated for so long. It's going to be hard for you to resist to the advertisement or the smell of those foods anymore because the intestinal flora are manipulating your brain. So we suggest that the parents to help their kids to deal with this as well. So just now, I want to ask another question. Are there any other specific things we may need for our brains in terms of emotional and cognitive health? For example, some people say serotonin or dopamine are quite important. Are there a way to eat plant-based diet to acquire those? Or if, especially when women go through menopause, can the hormonal changes in the body be supported by plant-based diet? Well, two questions there. So the first question about serotonin or dopamine or endorphin, etc. Well, now there are quite a lot of studies there. For example, bananas or mangoes are going to be really supportive to serotonin. But I suggest you to use that mindset of subtraction. We were supposedly to be happy. We are unhappy because we've been eating the wrong things. The wrong things, I mean meat, eggs, and milk. So if you want to be happy, you should not only to take a little bit more bananas, but to avoid harmful foods, not only meat, egg, milk, dairy products, but also include what I have talked about, those oils, and also not too much nuts or those fine processed, well packaged foods, a long preservative period. Do not eat those because they have quite a lot of chemical additives into it, or any foods with chemical fertilizers or pesticides, etc. We avoid those things, and then your body's healthy nature would automatically be generated and released. It's not something only to be triggered by eating good foods. we were supposed to be happy, but it was covered or barred because of the wrong way of lifestyle or diet. We need to do subtraction there. Well, thank you, Dr. Xu. A very critical, disruptive theory to all of us, how to fundamentally think about it, that we always bear that happiness and the seeds within our body. We have the self-healing abilities, and in many cases, those abilities are blocked because we haven't been doing the right things or we've been doing the wrong things. So how do we disrupt that kind of lifestyle and make gradual changes by ourselves is really important. So about hormone, could you talk a little bit about it? When women going through menopause? Menopause, well, menopause exists because women, when they are at that age period, their ovary stops to secrete the estrogen or estrogen and causing the hormone level to be decreasing. There's a soybean. Soybean is a very common food in Asian countries, which contains isoflavone, which is also something that could directly act upon the receptor for the beta receptor for estrogen, which can help you to prevent cardiovascular diseases, or it helps you to prevent the rarefaction of bone or osteoporosis. Like many physicians would use hormone pads or eat hormone directly for those women in menopause. However, that actually adds some more possibility to get cancer because the body naturally cuts it out and you artificially add it back into the body. It's something to stimulate the body and it stimulates those cancer related to hormone. So we really wouldn't recommend that. So take some soybean products that isoflavone in soybeans to some extent can replace or mitigate the lack of estrogen temporarily for those women during menopause. And there's quite a lot of studies that the soybean products can really help to reduce the syndrome of menopause. So to include some soybeans, so isoflavone only from soybean or is it from other products as well? Well, other beans also contains it, but not as much as not as much as in soybeans. It's a difference of 100 times. So thank you. Really nice recommendations. Well, our time is almost up. Thank you so much, Dr. Xu, for giving us so many clear explanations and very disruptive thinkings, not to replace your original diet, but to make your body free from the toxic or harmful foods such as meat and dairy products and egg, so that the self-healing abilities would reveal itself. All right, so last 1 or 2 minutes, Dr. Xu, could you give us the final summary here? Just a few short sentences. Well, thank you, Pei, and thank you, Act Asia. Several years ago, I had been paying attention to Act Asia. I know that you have been doing those education programs in the poverty areas, regions, and helping them to do that compassionate and life care, compassionate education is very significant and meaningful. Everything we've been doing on very large basis are actually for our offspring, our earth. Our offspring are facing a much more difficult environment to live in as we lived in. The environment we have at our hands has already been damaged quite a lot. And why we are doing this? Because we want to leave a more suitable environment and a space for our offspring to live. Otherwise, we're going to be the sin barriers on the perspective of history. And I believe that should be the momentum, the driving force for every one of us. Most of us, we do have offsprings, and any one of us wouldn't want our offsprings to live in a very destructive environment. We want them to enjoy what we could enjoy, the blue skies and white clouds. But in recent years, the world had been changing. We began to know that animal-based diets, this type of industrialization of a more predatory nature is really damaging the only home we all share, Earth. So let's protect our world, no matter what religious background you come from, or what age, what ethnicity, or what color of your skin it is. Let's protect our common home, Earth. Well, thank you so much for that summarization. This year in the UN's EP, UNEP, United Nations Environmental Program, one of the speeches also shocked me. Well, putting a pack of meat on your table actually hurts not only the animal, but the environment, but also biodiversity, the wild animals, etc. And many people haven't been thinking about the linkage between that. And ACT Asia has been doing this for so long for our kids and the education practitioners, the teachers and the schools, and hoping the consumers would make different changes and bring some better future for the offspring, like what you have talked about, a better future for our offspring to be living in. So today, thank you so much, Dr. Xu, for your time. We're going to put the recordings online. You could all get to watch it again. Thank you, Dr. Xu. I believe today is just the beginning, and we can all join hands together to make the world a more compassionate and a sustainable place. October the 1st, October the 4th, we have last one session, an internal medicine physician from Japan will tell us how to study the intestinal environments to protect our own physical and mental health, the relationship between plant-based diets and human beings, how to maintain good health in your intestines. So you're welcome to join that last session of Plan Forward. Thank you, Dr. Xu. It marks the end of today's session. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pei Fen. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Bye, everyone.